I want to look to my favorite novella, The Awakening, by Kate Chopin. When we read this in 11th grade, I still remember I was in Atlantic City at the teacher's convention with my mother and my father, and I read this whole novella in Bally's Casino in, like, a spa area at the pool. I don't know. It's how I guess, remember the text. But I've turned back to this. I'm going to be researching this for my dissertation. It comes back, so I guess I am using it again. But this one, I just want to end with the conclusion, because I think it relates to an issue that I felt Mr. Lawler helped me really recognize within myself and self-actualize me in a way that might not have been possible without reading something so empowering. Despondency had come upon her there in the wakeful night, and had never lifted. There was no one thing in the world that she desired. There was no human being whom she wanted near her except Robert, and she even realized that the day would come when he too, and the thought of him would melt out of her existence, leaving her alone. The children appeared before her like antagonists who had overcome her, who had overpowered and sought to drag her into the soul's slavery for the rest of her days. But she knew a way to elude them. She was not thinking of these things when she walked down to the beach. The water of the Gulf stretched out before her, gleaming with the million lights of the sun. The voice of the sea is seductive, never ceasing, whispering, clamoring, murmuring, inviting the soul to wander in abysses of solitude. All along the white beach up and down, there was no living thing in sight. A bird with a broken wing was beating the air above, reeling, fluttering, circling, disabled down to the water. Edna had found her old bathing suit still hanging, faded upon its accustomed peg. She put it on, leaving her clothing in the bathhouse. But when she was there beside the sea, absolutely alone, she cast the unpleasant, pricking garments from her, and for the first time in her life she stood naked in the open air, at the mercy of the sun, the breeze that beat upon her, and the waves that invited her. How strange and awful it seemed to stand naked under the sky! How delicious! She felt like some newborn creature, opening its eyes in a familiar world that it had never known. The foamy wavelets curled up to her white feet and coiled like serpents about her ankles. She walked out. The water was chill, but she walked on. The water was deep, but she lifted her white body and reached out with a long, sweeping stroke. The touch of the sea is sensuous, enfolding the body in its soft, close embrace. She went on and on. She remembered the night she swam far out, and recalled the terror that seized her at the fear of being unable to regain the shore. She did not look back now, but went on and on, thinking of the blue-grass meadow that she had traversed when a little child, believing that it had no beginning and no end. Her arms and legs were growing tired. She thought of Leonce and the children. They were a part of her life, but they need not have thought that they could possess her, body and soul. How Mademoiselle Reisz would have laughed, perhaps sneered if she knew. And you call yourself an artist? What pretensions, madame! The artist must possess the courageous soul that dares and defies. Exhaustion was pressing upon and overpowering her. Goodbye. Because I love you. He did not know. He did not understand. He would never understand. Perhaps Dr. Mandela would have understood if she had seen him. But it was too late. The shore was far behind her, and her strength was gone. She looked into the distance, and the old terror flamed up for an instant, then sank again. Edna heard her father's voice, and her sister Margaret's. She heard the barking of an old dog that was chained to the sycamore tree. The spurs of the cavalry officer clanged as he walked across the porch. There was the hum of bees, and the musky odor of pinks filled the air. Oh, that passage still was very powerful to me. And after Mr. Lawler, I think, even assigned Sylvia Plath's poetry, and that's when I was first introduced to Sylvia Plath, who I also really have a fond interest in researching, and Virginia Woolf. And unfortunately, Virginia Woolf's life ended with that passage of Edna. Edna drowns, kills herself, and so does Virginia Woolf. And she's older in life, and even Sylvia Plath, unfortunately, commits suicide. And to me, it's always been that notion of, what could have stopped it, what was going on in their thoughts, how alone they must have felt, how brilliant their poetry and prose is, but, constant need for trying to figure out who they are. And I experienced that, and without the awakening, I don't know. I think I would still be here. And I think there is hope. And high school education, middle school, when bullying occurs. And now this is becoming a PSA. Sorry, side note. I'm going off, but I think it's very pivotal to especially that passage. And I constantly felt comfortable in that environment with Mr. Lawler and other teachers. Mrs. Hall, you made my experience really comfortable and such a safe social area in your chemistry class. And I love chemistry, and I love the theories, and I think it's due to you mostly. And a teacher really has that impact. And I knew I could talk about those issues with Mrs. Hall, with Mr. Lawler, with a lot of the teachers at Washington Township High School. And I think that's what's important when teachers assign material, is that it does speak to students, and it is affecting them. And, for those who may feel alone and might not be comfortable speaking out about their sexuality or bullying because of their religion, because of their race, because of socioeconomic factors, may feel very alone. And then the bullying that can occur, and I was fortunate because my bullying mostly occurred in middle school, which is unfortunate, but I knew that there were mostly male classmates, some female who were not very accepting of who I was, or how I felt, or expressed myself, who humiliated me in class sometimes with certain comments they made. But I did develop a self-awareness. And I also attributed that to an LGBTQ group we had at the high school. And to, teachers who were very committed. They're very committed to listening and making you feel comfortable, and it is excellent. So I do thank all of those teachers at the high school who I attribute that to. And thank you again, Mr. Lawler, for introducing me to this and allowing there to be that existence.